And I don't have a huge problem with that. And the floodplain study, just if people haven't looked at them, and even if you've looked at them, you may not necessarily know what you're looking at. It takes some education. That's not disrespect, but the stuff you've looked at them, there's probably a lot of those things you're probably still confused about.
But I would like to ask or make two statements.
Let me say one thing first,
okay.
and I'll do that.
Okay.
But in that area, the floodplain, the engineer doing the floodplain study says they'll basically take two measurements. One, how much the base flood elevation will rise at points along up and downstream. And then it'll show then there'll be an area of how far up and downstream there's any, again, the word is inundation. So in the event of a flood, what is the area that will be affected by fill in a floodplain, for instance? So that's how we would know how far down, up and downstream you would get to do that. But you also have to be mindful of this. These notice provisions aren't just going to apply to the oil and gas industry. So you're going to have to, you know your neighbors and things like that. So we got to pay for these things. You got to pay for publications. So it cuts both ways. And it's easy for it's pick off for you to say, well, you guys have plenty of money, you pay for
I
public.
think most of the people in this county would probably say, I don't have a problem with notifying people.
But there are,
that you guys have to too.
yeah, no, that's not a problem. I'm just saying there's additional cost for that. I mean, for some floodplain permit applications, to add an accessory building or structure, the application is $5, but the service fees could be hundreds of dollars. I mean,
But the thing, the 10 days I just think
that's a suggestion. I mean, 15. I mean, it's a suggestion. They don't have to accept my comments. That's our suggestion. That's our position.
I mean, we're rural county.
I do support the residents on this issue because Dodgers County, and I assume Dodgers County is very similar to other small counties that are more rural. There is an issue. I mean, in some of the larger counties, you have 1, 2, maybe 3 newspapers that come out either in the morning or the afternoon. Dodgers County has this unique issue of 1 or 2 papers and they don't come out daily. So I do appreciate longer than 10 days.
Well, my overall goal, just so you know, is to shorten the overall period.
Yeah.
It's whether we do it in Dan's 90-day period or this period or the next period. I mean,
yeah.
Joy, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to, not a question per se, but, well, okay, I'll give you one question. How long now is it that the DEP gives you to object?
30 days.
Is it 20 days or 30
20.
days?
20, 15, 20.
30 days for a horizontal well, 15 for a conventional well.
Okay. And I will say that I take the newspaper, but it gets mailed to me on a Wednesday. It takes me exactly 11 days before it hits my mailbox.
Oh, Mrs. Huff, you don't have to worry. You know Mr. Foster's taking care of you.
Well, okay. Judge Sweeney issued an order in October. It took 15 days for that order to reach me by mail. So,
Yeah, well, I appreciate that point here in Dodgers County, and I don't mean to be negative to Dodgers County because I assume there's other smaller counties that have the same problem. There's not, even though we'd like to believe that everyone has the internet, everything's instantaneously now communicated. That's not even the case in Dodgers County with the Wi-Fi connections that you have. I mean, my goodness, when I drive out of Dodgers County to call back to my office, I have to wait for a certain period before I can even connect with the world.
Wood County.
So yeah, I have to get down to the river basin.
When does the time period?
That's the overall goal. It doesn't matter whether you 20-day comment period, okay. It's short to 90 days. I mean, the problem is it's just it's getting ridiculous.
When does the 20-day period or the 10-day period start?
I believe it's written as the day of application. Because like within 5 days, the clerk has to do what they need to do, and then that gives you basically 15 more days. So you're going to know all that stuff.
We got to go.
All right.
I had to run off, but we got to go. We got
Good for you.
to drive. I'm
I thought
sorry.
it was from the time you
Y'all call me
signed.
if anything.
received
Sir,
that you
if
received
need
the
my help
letter.
or anything.
Yeah.
Please call me.
Yeah,
If you need, y'all need my number. I'll leave you
I'll
some
take one of
cards.
those.
All I got.
We would like to thank
They all know how to
Kevin
get a
Sneed
hold of you.
and his
Just set them down there. Kevin, just set them down there. People get them.
I'd like to thank you, Kevin, for coming. It was very valuable, and
I wish I could stay. I gotta
yeah,
be about 6:30.
we certainly appreciate you
Can I
coming.
give you my comments and objections?
The next regarding timing is a little different. There's no time period to require the sheriff to do their service. So we just think as a practical matter,
That's what I'm talking
is that your, yeah. I mean, we think that the sheriff should attempt service within 5 days of receiving a no return from the certified mail, and which is, they have 10 days to do that. So we think that the sheriff should have to attempt the service if they're going to attempt the service. Quite frankly, our initial comments were to just do certified mail and publication and basically place it on the agenda. If you want to involve the sheriff, that's fine. But I think that you just need to speed him up in doing that, because I've had things attempted to be served by various sheriffs, and that could take a long time.
Well, I'll be honest with you. In my practice, I never rely upon the sheriff ever to serve anything, because they generally don't constitutionally do it correctly, and that becomes an issue.
So I mean,
I don't know the Dodge County Sheriff or his department, but that is a problematic issue all over the state of West Virginia.
my next comment is a little bit different. Is on section 7.3.g, page 38. The way it's written now is that an applicant is to be told of his decision at the next county commission meeting. We don't understand why that's necessary. If EQT applies for a permit and Mr. Williams makes a ruling, he should be told. I mean, EQT should be told. It doesn't mean it can't be announced at the next county commission meeting, and time periods could run from then. But there's no reason he can't just say, hey, EQT, you have this permit.
Well, I drafted it that way, understanding in particular Dodge County. That it seems to, from what I've observed, the posting on the county court door and the announcement at the commission meeting is the primary way that these citizens learn of what's going on at their county commission. So that's basically why I tied everything to a county commission announcement, because that seemed to be the safest way for these folks to get notice.
Well, posting it on the door the day that Mr. Williams make a decision would be okay, and then announcing it at the county commission meeting. But, you know, if the county commission regular meetings are on Mondays, or Tuesdays. Let's say he makes a decision on a Wednesday following a county commission meeting. It's another 13 days before we know, and it's another 13-day delay.
Well, the problem is not so much your delay, but giving notice to the people that might object to want to appeal. And that's why the posting on, and then the announcement at the county commission meeting, frankly, if this was in Ohio County, I wouldn't have drafted it that way, because we operate a little differently. There's other ways to communicate. We have email, we have flash emails that go out.
I understand the position. That's my comment, and you don't have to accept it. I mean, I understand that. It's just I'm just trying to shorten it.
Yeah.
The notice provision for basically in an event of vandalism or things like that, page 38, section 7.3.h. We made this comment before, Don, and it wasn't added. We believe that notice provisions are not mandatory as a result of a directive by a state or federal government agency. There are, in the event of a natural disaster, the notice provisions aren't required, vandalism to repair things like that. Sometimes the DEP will come to a site and say, you need to do this. Well, in that case, we can't wait on the county commission and damn well as you give everybody notice that something needs to be done. What if FEMA comes along and says you have to do this? And so we just think there needs to be an addition that should a state or federal government agency create a mandate that the notice provisions aren't applicable. And that affects everybody. I mean, Mr. Sneak talked about a propane tank in your house. And if let's say it wasn't properly secured and now you have to pour a concrete pad, that's a perfect example of when you shouldn't have to worry about notifying all your neighbors. Dan should say, okay, go pour a pad and put your propane tank in. It's a perfect example. The next goes towards penalties on page 41, 9C. It really is a penalty because it doubles or triples a permanent application fee. I do understand, appreciate the need to deter people from violating floodplain ordinance. I have no problem with that. The problem I have as written is doubling the permanent application fee or tripling a permanent application fee for a violation, which is, if it goes on for 3 days, is a repeated violation. The next permanent application fee could be $300,000.
Yeah. This was the original FEMA language that was promulgated on every county in West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm assuming.
And my issue is, I wish Kevin was still here. I'll have to ask him. I mean, what we tried not to do was monkey with too much of the FEMA language, because we knew we were going to hit a stone wall when it goes up to Philadelphia. it's an awkward provision in and of itself, I agree.
It doesn't bother me as much if the penalties, I mean, the application permit fee is $1,000.
Right.
I mean, the problem is, right now, if we have $100,000, and I can promise you that's not, if $100,000 is constitutional, or even if it was found constitutional, $300,000 wouldn't be. So, I mean, that's going to invite a fight.
Yeah, I guess what the provision is attempting to do, and that is to severely economically punish an entity that is a frequent flyer on violating the ordinance to the point that they would quit frequently flying in face of the ordinance.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's...
But you also have a penalty provision at the end, so that they got 2 penalties.
Well, see, the problem with just $1,000 against a multinational corporation that's worth billions of dollars, you know, it has to have enough, it's like punitive damage award in a case, enough in it that means something to someone, or they'll just continually violate the ordinance. That's my concern.
Well, that's okay if you have constitutional or statutory authority to do it.
Yeah.